Thanks for joining me. We've watched 2 episodes of the Spartan Games. It is definitely being talked an awful lot about. And yesterday we were anxiously awaiting a noon episode, which we were then told 2 and then told 3, and then it went up at about 12:45 or 2:45. So several people have said, well, they probably listened to all the feedback we gave around there was too much quote unquote drama, not enough action, and they wanted to give us more action. And so they fixed it last minute. That's why the episode was late. What would you say to that, Mike Morris?
Couple things. One, glad everyone's watching. That's our intent, right? So thank you for being good customers and watching the show and providing that feedback. Two, of course, we took the feedback from the viewers, right, and the athletes, as well as internally, and I can promise you, the team who's been killing it was working up to probably like the minute before it was launched to get this thing done. And I say that, let me say that because it's a lot of work. And I found out a little interesting stat. For every minute of video that's produced, it takes a day of editing. Now, if you do the quick math, there's 4 shows on average of 40 minutes. That's 160 minutes of video. So that would equate to 160 days of editing. This thing took place mid-October. We're mid-December. We're talking maybe 60 days, call it 40 days of editing, right? So this team is running at 3 to 4 times a typical production cycle.
Where did this production math come from?
The one that's like standard TV production, film production that these guys always work off of. So it's we have an internal team that's doing this and an external team. And so they're literally working around the clock through the weekends to get the production done.
One day to get 1 minute does sound, I know editing takes a lot. 1 day to get 1 minute sounds like an awful lot.
Yeah, I'm just telling you what I was told. Now, I think that probably rolls in the fact that like we think of like every shot was probably like 4 cameras going at least. So not only did so they had to go through and literally watch 4 to 6 cameras worth of footage.
Okay, okay. I wasn't thinking about that.
Like I left there and I was anxious for this team. I was like, oh my God, they got to watch all this video. And then not only that, but it's like, what are we going to talk about? Like, how are we going to shape this story? Like, everyone's really good at being a critic, including myself, really good at being a critic. Like, you see the draft, I see the draft come out. I'm like, oh, change it. But like, to even get to that point to like, what is the story we're going to tell? How are we going to tell it? What are we going to feature? Like, that in itself takes a lot of dialogue, back and forth, creativity. Think about it's like art. It's a mixture of creativity and science, right? And they have to have the same discussions. They're having the same discussions to come to that output of what the storyline is going to be, what we're going to talk about, because we knew what the framework was going into the event, but we didn't know like what was going to happen. So when we talk about a day, when we talk about getting a lot done in a short amount of time, and so for the critics out there, like, oh man, they're making changes. Like, I'm sure they were, because like anything that was trying to pack 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag. Yeah, we're working up to the last minute. And yes, we listen to our customers as well as internal feedback. And coincidentally, a lot of the feedback received from our customers was also our viewers was the same as we gave internally. We just kind of ran out of time for episode 1 to get all the changes we want. We could have episode 1 could have been 6 hours long, right? And with all the footage we had.
Right. Well, especially because episode 1 has to be introduction of the concept, introduction of the athletes, introduction of the team. There's a lot to do. I had initially heard, and I guess this was completely wrong, and I'm glad that the episodes were going to be short, like 10 to 15 minutes. And I thought, well, that's going to be really short for all that action. Was that originally the plan? And
there was a lot of originals on the table between pro combine to 10-minute hits on social, just covering it on social, no post-production, like purely go live, right? Everything was on the table.
Well, the biggest questions that came out of the episode 1 was this entire thing of the penalties between Aaron and Hunter. And while neither man, who I both consider friends, comes out smelling well, you made a decision that one was quote unquote worse than the other, I guess.
Yeah.
So based on the introduction of the show, it was intent to harm versus obstruction.
Impeding, I think I used the language impeding progress, which is one of the rules we have in the actual rule book.
So did you, and that's the other thing, is that this is a first time event. Did you go into the event with, and no answer is incorrect, a rule book, no rule book, or well, we'll just go with the Spartan rule book? Like, what did you go to the event with?
While you say no answer is incorrect, I'm sure your viewers, according to viewers, no answer is correct either. So I'll throw it out there.
I'm trying to point, there's no judgment on my part for now. I'm just trying to
no
get
matter
clarity.
what I say, someone's going to be like, wow, which is fine. We went in with the rule book specific to the actual events, right? And with an understanding that generally speaking, we like fall back on the rules of the sport of OCR. Understanding that like Spartan Games was its own little animal, right? And that's what we did, right? And I didn't watch Hunter's episode that you have. I watched Aaron's. I think it was like back and forth in Home Depot, but like he said, like we waited all day because we'd called Joe and Joe had it out for him. And like, by the way, a lot of things that were said in that show that were wrong. But Joe had no idea we're penalizing these guys. We don't call Joe for rules. Like,
I wouldn't, Mike, knowing you, that did seem odd to me. Like, it seems like for that weekend, the buck would stop with you.
Well, Watts, so here's how we decided prior, like any major decisions on penalties, we'd have a committee. So the committee was myself, it was Watson, it was Nate and Gary. And Watson's 12 hours ahead in Singapore. So I'm not going to call the guy like at 1 a.m. his time and get on the phone, right? And plus we had to wait for the film to get like cut because we knew we knew at that moment, like after we looked into like, so whatever happened, right? And we're like, man, I wish I had this on film. Come to find out, it was like half an hour later, like shit, the drone got it. Like, but they couldn't figure that out right away, right? They had to go in, like look on the drone thing, like, oh, we got it. All right. By the way, we're in the middle of shooting the women now. We've got the swim back up right up against the film team sprinting there. Then we're going to Highland Games. So we had to wait for the film to get like cut.
Was the sprint on top of Blood Route? Where was the swim?
The swim was at a park like a half an hour away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because I know it takes forever to get up to that Blood Route swim. You know what I'm talking about.
The Chittenden Reservoir. No. We looked at. This was a park, beautiful lake. I forget what it's called, Silver Lake, I think, or maybe I'm thinking of Friday the 13th.
Okay, but a half an hour wake, half an hour away.
So like everyone, there's always conspiracy theories about like why we waited. Like we had to call Joe. Joe has it out for Aaron. Like, look, Aaron opened his mouth on the Friday night. We're not getting into that, but he deserved everything Joe said that night. Right? But that has nothing to do with the penalties given. We don't call Joe Desena for penalties, right? Like, and Joe's sitting there telling you, like, don't call out penalties, right? But we decided, myself, Watson, Nate, Gary, we had to wait for the film to get cut down so we could watch it. And you see us in the shoot actually look at the film, right? And then David had to watch it, to wake up and watch it. And then we had to get on calls. And you know, we'd lean team. I'm the guy with the stopwatch at the swim, who's also like setting up the course, like setting up the Highland Games, timing people, like. No, we did not want to rush this. There's no need to rush the results. So we're like, all right, we're going to let him know before dinner, like finalize everything. And so we did that. We got on the phone with Watson and said, this is what we're going to do. And we don't rush that. Right. So, all these conspiracy theories by why we waited and stuff, but like, I'd rather take my time, do it right, look at the footage. And this is the first time ever where we've had like real footage to look at for a penalty, like for some of that's going on like that. Right. We've had like videos, like remember in Atkins and like Asheville in 2014, like touched the ground or something during the rope climb. We like
there was multiple. It was Atkins fell off the rope, and before that, at that point, you could only do one attempt.
Yeah.
But that was the same race where Killian's foot grazed the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Or did it, right? That was a whole woof.
Yeah, so those are the times where we've had footage and we're able to make decisions based on that. And the challenge inherently, like in this sport, is we can't rely on athletes' feedback to give penalties. We can't have a penalty, someone come off the course, be like, yo, someone hit me on the course, or they cut the course. Like, we can't believe what the athletes say, or it'll just be disaster. Like, it has to be from an official or footage, right? And even then, we've just in the rules, it says like we will make the decision whether we want to accept third-party footage, because what we don't want is to sit there after a race and have like 500 people walk up with their cell phones being like, look at this, right? So how do we reasonably manage that? So that's one of the challenges with the bigger event. In this event, luckily we had the drone literally fly over. Like everyone was like, all the film guys I was asking around, you guys have footage of the bucket carry? And they're like, no, we really didn't catch that the first 100 meters. And finally the drone guy's like, I got it, right? So it's like literally coming over as it goes down. And then Gary was actually standing right there, and he walked over like after the men's race. It was like, do you see Aaron throw the bucket? I'm like, no. He's like, all right, we got to talk about that. But he didn't see the slap. So again, obviously we had Gary see it, and then we confirmed it with the footage. That took time. Whatever. We decided that's how it went down with the timing of it.
So let's bring this into our sport, obstacle racing. If you have footage in the future at a U.S. National Series race, and you see a couple guys kind of throwing bows, like what is going to be the rule moving forward?
Are you talking about like if we see it like post-production?
I'm saying if you see it at the race, like you're standing there because you're at that obstacle, or whoever sees it, and you see like some guys kind of like John and elbowing.
I see. You're not talking about the mechanics of like the footage. Look, if we, I think, and this is not a decision I can make in a silo. Like this is not a sport where you like there's not going to be like the incidental contact, right? We don't want a sport where there's like we're allowed to physically altercate each other and have deliberate deliberate punches, and like what it is. But like it's like if you're shouldering for position on a turn, I think we'd all argue that's acceptable. But if the shoulder turns into a shove and the person falls, like becomes subjective there, and like where's across the line. So
right, because I mean I've definitely seen it. I've watched it happen in real time, or like on a video later, like, ooh, those guys were kind of mixing it up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's what we're gonna have to figure out.
This other question of the quote unquote production deck of Spartan has decided heroes and villains of this program, and they want to turn it into a reality show. What is your answer to that?
If anyone has ever been involved with TV or media, right, and soliciting a sponsor, like what sells in TV, right? And it's drama, it's personalities, right? And I'm not talking about drama like called TMZ drama, like a better term, but like drama in sports, right? You want to see that sprint to the finish, right? And when you see personalities, you want to see like you don't want a bunch of like boring people that like don't talk to each other and they're like, yeah, I finished. Like people watch sport for the think football, the big personalities in football that are outspoken, and like that adds to the element of sport, I think, right? Whether we like it or not, whether we want to admit it or not. So look, I didn't put the deck together, but it was a sponsorship deck that went out. And I'm sure it got to one of our sponsors, who then sent it to their athlete, who they sponsor, say, hey, check this out. Look, it doesn't mean we went into the event being like, okay, Hunter, we're gonna make him the villain. We're gonna dress him in paint his face and like call him the villain, right? It's just like when you're trying to talk to a sponsor and shape the event and be like, tell us some more about what we can expect. It's like, well, here are the personalities, right? Here's so and so. They're like the All-American who is the Eagle Scout, right? And it's here's the so and so who's the quote unquote villain, who's not really a villain, but like he's more outspoken. He's going to be the in Hunter's case, he'll say it like he likes to get under people's skin, right? So yeah, it went out. It was a deck that went out to sponsors to try to solicit support for the event. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it doesn't mean, I'll be very clear, it doesn't mean we're going into the event like purposely trying to make those folks into that. It's just like, here's what a sponsor can expect from these personalities on site.
Well, you said that a lot of what has been said in these videos isn't true. Do you want to address anything specifically?
I don't want to get into details. There's a lot. I mean, again, I didn't watch Hunter's, I watched Aaron's. Whether it's the order of events or actually like his opinions to the why. The biggest thing was like his dynamic with Joe Friday night. Like it was I was there. It was uncalled for. Like the stuff he said, he made it out like Joe was in the wrong. Like I gotta listen to it again, but let's just leave it. I was like, it was clearly inappropriate, the stuff Aaron was saying, like, and then the whole thing he said about us waiting to, and he somehow tied that back to his penalty, saying like we waited to talk to Joe. Joe wanted to penalize Aaron because of what he said Friday night. Like I said, Joe wasn't involved in any sort of penalty, but I don't want to get into it.
Okay. What do you think you would do differently if there is a Spartan Games Part 2 or 2021 or whatever? Like, what did you learn this year that you would fix for next year?
I think I'd give ourselves more time. That's, we give ourselves like 6 weeks for this one. And that's not just us, that's for the athletes. We give them, we give them a long time to prepare, and we still want to, I think the unknown is a cool part of the event, like not knowing everything going on. They knew coming in there's going to be a swim. Sorry, I might have gone dark there because my phone was ringing. They knew, I don't know if I got that. They knew they knew the big stuff. They knew there's going to be a swim, there's going to be a bike. They knew there's going to be a run. They could guess there's going to be like a component that has to do with OCR, right? But I think the athletes would have appreciated knowing that there's a mountain bike section, they'd have more time to train on a mountain bike, right? They would have probably done a little more specific training, right? So more time would have been good. And I would have spent more time and effort managing expectations and communicating with the athletes during the event to make sure things are crystal clear, right? Like everything from the little nuances on the rules and what the expectations are every single minute. It's one thing to manage an event like we typically do with 10,000 people or a 300-person elite heat or 600 people at a Sweden Ultra World Championship. Like, you got to get it right. But we're talking about 24 high-level athletes that like I'm next to for 12 hours a day. Money's on the line. And so every little nuance matters, every little detail matters. And we just had to be like really on top of it. And so I would just put more emphasis in that. Just like it's the story of life. Like, it's about managing expectations, and you just got to get it right.
Well, I agree with you. And I understand these are 24 different human beings, right? And high-level athletes are different than if you just got 24 people, in the building that I'm in. So they have certain expectations. There can be diva qualities. There can be entitled qualities. There can be, what do you call it? Very specific. Like, I get it. And again, a lot of these people are my friends, but I get it, right? And so you're managing all those egos. So I want you to know, I know it's not easy. However, this repeated line, which you used in the show, so you're not embarrassed about it, was, you told us non-technical.
Yep.
Advanced was what what's his name said. So what I heard from athletes prior or before the show airing was this overall tone of, it seems like they told us to get us there, the things that it's going to have what I'm good at. It's going to have a lot of what I'm good at and not a lot of what I'm not good at. And that's how you convince them to come. And they were sold this incorrect bill of goods. That's sort of the overall tone. So the bike was a specific example of that.
I think incorrect. It's tough to say we sold an incorrect bill of goods when they didn't know, when the design of the event was to find out what they're doing the night before, right? So I'll challenge that. And I'll get into the bike in a second. The unique part about this event, which made this really interesting for me personally, as well as I think really cool to see from an athlete perspective, is we took 24 high-level athletes that are specialists in their sport, and we took them out of their comfort zone. And what you guys don't see is like the beat down I got every single night at dinner where I would announce an event. They showed like 2 seconds of it. We showed Grant like being like, like we announced it. Like, it was like, here's how the night went. Here are the results. By the way, great job today, guys. High fives. You guys are all awesome. Here's what you're doing tomorrow. And it was like eruption, right? Like, do it this way. We don't want to do that. I can't believe we're doing that, right? And the first night I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then by the last night, I was just like, this is, I realized, what? These are high-level athletes, good at what they do, and I'm purposely surprising them. I'm by design, we're surprising them with things that are uncomfortable and scary, and like everyone's gonna have an opinion, and we're in this tight-knit like setting. Like, they know I'm not just the guy communicating the rules, I'm also the guy that like help write them and can change the outcome. So they know they have some latitude there, and I'm close to all of them. And so, yeah, they're going to be outspoken about it. So finally I was just like, and one of our TV producers was like, look, I think you just need to tell them, like, stop yelling. So at the point I was like, guys, this is how it's going to be, right? Like, 'cause I wanted to, there's some really good feedback that came in during those discussions. I don't discount that. Like, for example, I didn't think about mouth guards for the wrestling. And then one of the athletes was like, you need his mouth guards? Because it was a surprise. I was like, oh, so, we were able to find mouth guards at Walmart at 9 p.m. that night. And luckily,
thank goodness.
I know, right? So some good stuff came out of it. But when it was like,
was it the Walmart in Rutland, Mike Morris?
Yeah, I think so.
Just want to give big people like not close to where you were. Not Vermont is a town of one. The general store doesn't have mouthpieces, so there's no. You had to go far away to get to go to Walmart.
Correct. Yeah. So and
kind of one store. I mean,
the one store. Yeah, and I'm glad we were able to facilitate that. So there's great things that come out. Like, there's productive questions about the rules. You can imagine. I mean, you've been around athlete briefs for like the ultras. Like, there's 1,000 questions that come up, right? Can I wear a fanny pack, right? So there are great questions that came up, help define the rules, because we go through rules. But then there'd be like, but I don't like squirrels, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if you like squirrels or not. We're still going for a run.
Right.
But I gotta respect the athletes. So we're taking them out of their comfort zone. So anyways, that was just generally speaking what was really cool about the event, right? We purposely took people out of their comfort zone and surprised them. And it was interesting to see how they adapted. And you got these, and I think there's a line in the last show where I'm like, look, they're going from being like the best what they do to like complete novices. Like, of course they're scared, and it's for money on TV. Like, so I get it. What was I gonna say? Oh, so it was a great dynamic. It became kind of the theme throughout of like, how do they get handle this, and to see it play out. Specifically the bike. Yeah, I messed up, right? And it's kind of like a running joke now with that. Like, I'll tag them on social. They're like, hey guys, rolling hills. Look, we sprinted to get to where we were that day. Like, literally, like, to get the event off the ground. It was like every night, 4 hours a night, because Watson's not getting on the phone until like 7 p.m. our time, right? So it's like 7 to midnight. We were 5 hours every night getting this thing off the ground. And somewhere along the way, poor Nate is handling all the athletes directly. Like, we decided he's communicating, he's recruiting. Somewhere along the way, it's like, Morris, I'm the only one that knows the trails up there because I'd ridden them, right? Tell me what it's like. I'm like, oh, they're not bad. It's just like, it's not that technical, rolling hills. And so, like, that's what he told the athletes, right? So now,
prior to getting to the event, you mean? Or the night before?
It wasn't us deliberately trying to like.
No, but I'm saying this was not the night before. This was prior to them going.
Correct. Prior to them going. Yeah. This wasn't us trying to pull the wool over our eyes. This was like just a miscommunication. I own it. Like, I miscommunicated to my team, and it was a game of telephone. And so, but the night before, I sat there and was like, look, like, this is how it is, right? But the challenge in this is subjective, right? I mountain bike multiple times a week. I used to race, right? I live in the Northeast, which is like Vermont, and Vermont is known for being some of the best technical single track in the world. And so my calibration of what's technical is a lot different than someone who, Jared Shoemaker in the show, like, the guy lives, like, he grew up around me, but now he lives in Florida, right? Spends most time on his road bike, obviously, but now lives in Florida. I've ridden my mountain bike in Florida. Like, it's sandy dirt trails, or if you live even in California, and you can get some smooth rollers and stuff. So the challenge is, like, there's no rating. Like, if you climbed, like, calling something a 5.7 is typically, you know what that is globally. Now, there's ratings for those trails. They're all blue, and using the global ranking that they use for mountain bike trails, they're all blues and greens. I think Atkins said that's still somewhat regional, but they're all blues and greens. And so we had him on our podcast yesterday, and he says they're like blues and greens in his eyes. But again, he lives in Eastern Canada. He's a professional mountain biker.
Dude, Atkins, when it's over, it's like, that was great. That was awesome. That was so much fun. It's like, dude, You live on a fat bike. Like, you do this stuff. Nobody else does.
So when I say non-technical rolling hills clearly what is up a mountain, down a mountain. But when I say the bigger thing was the non-technical, right? We say non-technical. Like, when I think technical, it means like, I need like a full suspension rig. I need to be seat dropper down, and I need to be like sitting back and like kind of crossing my fingers when I'm hucking this like drop, or like super technical, like my foot's down all the time, or I'm trying to not put my foot down, right? These trails, like if you mountain bike, these trails are so much fun. They're like super fast, like berms, like they're cut, they're smooth. So much better than even the stuff around in Boston, right? Just in terms of smoothness. So that's why I said non-technical. But I should have done a better job explaining to the athletes, like, what does that really mean, right? You're still climbing X elevation. You're still in single track in Vermont. Yes, there's rocks. There's one section that we see on the film where it's like the one part I call technical on the whole ride, where they come down past there's a little cabin up there. We had some film guys, and you come down and it's through like a little riverbed. Like, yeah, that part is, but you can get off, walk your bike. So yes, acknowledge that was my mistake, and the athletes let me know it for sure.
After day 2, which is where we are in what is aired, were you, oh my God, thank God we're halfway over? Were you, I'm excited, we still have 2 days to go? Like, where were you? You know, your second night up all night, getting ready to start the wrestling. Where were you?
Total faith in the team. Like the team we had there was a bunch of all-stars. So like I wasn't worried about the production side of it. The first day was definitely the most logistically challenging. And we went from the cross to the swim to the Highland Games. It's 3 events. Highland Games in itself at 3 events. We're up against light. We're up against permitting at the swim. We're up against logistical challenges, moving people back and forth, like where the film crew was. Like when you stack them on a show on top of each other, like there wasn't a minute to spare mess up. And by the way, we're dealing with athletes who need to eat. They need to prepare for the next event, right? So getting through Monday, it was the first day. It wasn't Monday. It was a Saturday. It was like sigh of relief. Okay, this will work. Even though that day was a really tough day for reasons even beyond just some mistakes I made with some rules with some athletes, like really messed up. And that was so we spent a lot of day dealing with the Aaron Hunter thing. So I was glad the first day was over. Got through the second day, and like the biking from the production side was like, it was a beautiful day. It was like literally the most perfect day we could have gotten. And it was 5 hours long. So like we could sit there and take a deep breath. And like, yeah, the team was setting up for the next day. I think they're moving some stuff around. But it wasn't pouring rain, right? So yeah, we were definitely, I think we're all happy to get through the mountain bike. And the tone, like there's definitely a level of trust that we had to build with the athletes, right? So none of these athletes knew me from, half the athletes didn't know me from a hole in the wall, right? So luckily I had some good relationships with Ken and Newell and Atkins and Hunter, right? They know me from previous stuff, and they were great, and they got my back a couple times when I was talking to the athletes. But the athletes didn't know me. Like there's a moment where Grant is the coolest guy in the world, right? The Island Ninja. You heard about the Joe had him carry buckets Friday night to our surprise, right? And so like there's already a level of trust that was broken, and then by design it's a tough environment because we're surprising them with stuff. And so most people in this environment aren't necessarily like super trusting to begin with, and then we surprise them with something Friday night, and then we're surprising them with events. So Grant was like, we're all sitting there, and he's like, I still don't really trust you, but I can tell you're a good dude, right? And he's like, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna keep rolling with it. And so like I think by Tuesday night, there's still like people are like, all right, like we're beyond the drama of the first day and that Friday night. We've had 2 great events. Everyone's smoked, worked their asses off. But it's been about sport, right? It's been about like competing, and like we did our best to listen, and like we're going out of our way to like feed the athletes what they wanted, like in a tough, like we're in a bubble, right? And so we were fixing people's bikes, like really going out of our way to make it so the athletes can compete. So I think by Tuesday night there's a sigh of relief, not only for my team, just that it was halfway done, but I think the athletes were like, all right, this is going to be what it is. They're halfway done. They still have 2 big days left physically, and I think they were starting to really feel it to that second night, but I think it started to gel.
All right, 2 more episodes to come. Can you tell us when they will air? According to the schedule you posted a few weeks ago, it was every Wednesday. So that's going to be, what's today? Today's the 10th. So it looks like 9 and 7 is 16. 16 and 7 is 23. Is that the plan?
And 16th and the 23rd. That is the plan.
And we'll be looking at a noon Eastern time. And can you confirm that with me like the day before, and I'll post and share? And
Well, I don't control like when stuff gets posted, so you're asking the wrong guy. You should be asking like Jonathan Fine or John O or Joe. I don't think Joe knows either, but so
I can ask Joe.
ask the folks who actually get it up on the website and stuff. Post it. But I mean, I don't like you said. I thought it was coming out noon yesterday, and it came out at 3. Like I don't know why, but to be frank, like I'm not too worried about it. Like the team got it up, and it was great. So I think its plan is noon on next Wednesday.
All right, let's talk again in 2 weeks.
Sounds like a plan.